Y'all, I've never had so many stories to tell in one day. Well, that's not entirely true, but it doesn't happen very often. I'm sitting out here outside of Tiny Town's Smile Dentistry in Clarksville, Tennessee, ready to share some examples of how I keep my spiritual teeth clean. I'm Jerry Driver Tiley. Hello. The day started off normal, uneventful. I dropped off a passenger at the Tanger Outlets, which happens to have a little coffee shop called Red Bicycle. Best coffee ever. Thought perfect time for a break, maybe work on my book a little. So I sat down on the deck outside, opened my mason jar of hard-boiled eggs, and started peeling one. Halfway through, nature called. Figured I'll finish the egg on the way to the restroom. So I left the mason jar on the table to save my spot. When I came back, the jar was gone. Not far away was a cleaning lady, sweeping up broken glass by the trash can. The only thing I could think was she must have picked up the jar, thought it was trash, and then dropped it on the way to the can. So they went my breakfast. R.I.P. eggs. Anyway, I got back to my car, ready to keep going, and boom, tire light goes on. I check. There's a huge nail in my tire. Thankfully, it was the one tire we had a warranty on in Walmart. So I sat there working on my website while they changed it. Of course, nothing's ever simple. The hardware found issues with the alignment, not covered. So I had to pay out of pocket. Whatever. Oh well. Life moves on. And then I get a ride to Clarksville, and that's where things get interesting. This passenger spent 72 minutes trying to convince me to have small talk. The first thing he said, "So, how long have you been driving?" And everyone knows by now how much I love those kind of questions. I said, "Oh, so it's going to be one of those rides, huh?" We both laughed and teased each other, and I said, those are just overshared stories. It gets kind of boring. He said, "Okay." Then silence. A few minutes later, he tries again. "So, you live around here?" I said, "I live around." Another pause. Then he goes, "You don't have any stories to tell? Anything you'd like to share on this long ride?" And I said, "Not really. I'm not always this quiet, but today I'm just not very talkative." Until now. He said that was fine, and we rode in silence. Until about 5 minutes before the drop-off, when he suddenly started explaining every gas station along the road, their prices, and which ones gave the best deals. When we arrived, he got out, thanked me for the ride, tipped me $8. Woohoo! Then came my next passenger, and the energy could have not been more different. He gets in the car and says, "Want to hear a joke?" I said, "Is it clean?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "All right, let's hear it." He goes, "Guess what?" I said, "What?" "Chicken butt." That's when I knew it was going to be that kind of ride. I laughed and said, "Wow, that joke's as old as time." Classic. Then he asked if we could stop at a gas station so he could use the ATM. I was getting tired anyway, so I said, "Sure. You want to buy me a coffee?" He paused and said, "How much is coffee these days?" I said, just a couple bucks, gas station coffee. So we waited in line together, and he's out of nowhere says, "I just noticed you have a really cute butt." And I said, "That's actually really inappropriate to say to your Uber driver." He looked surprised and embarrassed and said, "Really? I didn't mean anything bad. It's just a compliment." And I said, "I'm sure, but save those compliments for your girlfriend. Women don't really like being complimented on their bodies anymore." We got back in the car, and it was awkwardly silent for a while. And then he said, "Hey, I'm really sorry." I said, "You already apologized. You are fine." Then as he got out of the car, he said it one more time, "I'm sorry." I smiled and said, "You're forgiven. Have a wonderful day." Y'all, it's only 2 p.m. Let's hope the rest of the day is a little less eventful. But ladies, do not let men push you around. If you don't want to talk to the dude, you don't have to. If you don't want to have a discussion about your body with him, shut that shit down. You have a right to feel safe in your own space. You have a right to protect it, just like I did today. So keep on going with your bad self. Thanks for rolling with Dolly. P.S. When's the last time you had an awkward moment with a dude?